Hello and welcome to Sugar, Silk and Stretch, a unique boxing podcast brought to you exclusively by Ace Podcast Nation. As Sean B says, Sunday would not be Sunday without this. My name is Ben Doughty.
My name is Michael Silk Olajide.
Well, Silk, we are waiting for our Confederate Gary Stretch, and I do imagine he's going to make the show because
Wait. You
he'll
said
want to gloat.
Confederates?
Confederate, yeah, just
yeah,
the one.
Yeah, you can't say that in the States.
No, because it's to do with what is it to do with like Yankees and Confederates and all that.
I'm praying.
One thing you are great at is jamming a verbal flow. It's like I throw a jab over and you're like you do that wedge block that Timothy Bradley
wedge
calls
blocks
it.
aren't effective. You have to parry the jab. You parry, and then you can counter with the power right.
Yeah. Well, either way, you would think Gary would want to come on because out of the three of us, he was the only one who picked Ryan Garcia last night to win as he did. They're calling it a big shock, but
I want to know why he picked Garcia. That's what I want to know. I mean,
did you watch the show? I'm not suggesting you should have done, but did you? I'll tell you what he said if you didn't watch the show. What he said was, he said, "I'm going to go with Garcia because he's got the speed, he's got the power." I think, and what he said as well is, I think he's got boxing IQ. And I'm like, I said, what? Wait a second, boxing IQ? Why? What evidence has he ever shown of boxing IQ? I still don't think he's got any boxing IQ. Definitely got power, Silk. He also, listen, Silk, let's be honest, he never made any attempt to make the weight. He comes in 3.2 pounds over. He looked, I know Haney's been accused of being a weight bully and hydrating like crazy, but he looked massive. He looked like Joe Calzaghe's size, Garcia, on the night. And, I don't think he's. See, here's my thing, right? Initially, I thought I'd scored it a draw, like Chris Mannix, and some people were ridiculing that because they form an impression and they don't score it round by round. And you know how big I am on this. So listen, I actually got my scorecard wrong, right? Somebody pointed out, Ben, you actually scored it to Garcia by a point. I had it 112, 111 to Ryan Garcia. If he hadn't lost the point in the seventh round, that Harvey Dock deducted it, I would have had him by 2 points. Here's how it goes, Silk. I had it 7-4-1 in rounds to Haney. That's why the round scoring system is insufficient. Remember Wilfred Benitez versus Bruce Curry the first time?
Yeah.
And Benitez got it because of the round scoring system. It wasn't a 10-point must back then in New York. So on a 10-point must, even though I only gave Garcia 4 rounds, he won them so big, battering the man from pillar to post, that he won the fight by my card. Even with a point deduction, he still won it by a point. I don't think it's crazy that I had it close because of... Because I think Haney won a bunch of rounds where Ryan did nothing.
It's so true. Absolutely true.
I'm relieved that you're not arguing, because when he gets here, he's going to be arguing, but I'm relieved that you're with me on this.
Yeah, no, I'm absolutely with you. And not only because, I picked Haney to win, but just because, I mean, it's just the way boxing should be and the way boxing has always been. And I don't know. He did get dropped multiple times.
Yeah.
But it was located to those rounds that he dominated, and the kid came out afterwards, and he won the rounds. He got busier, but you could tell he was lucky to go. He was really fortunate to go the distance. And if Garcia was a better finisher,
we were saying off camera. I haven't discussed the finishing aspect yet, but we were both saying off camera. Even though we completely acknowledge the fact that Garcia can punch. He looks very vulnerable around the whiskers, Haney, in a way that must be an absolute liability because he was on Queer Street. And, if he was still at lightweight, you could say maybe he's weak at the weight and all of that kind of thing. But you wouldn't think he should be weak at 140. He doesn't look as if he should be. So that just looks, every time he got hit solid, he was at sea, wasn't he?
Yeah. What I couldn't understand, I had many issues with this fight in terms of what Haney did in preparation and what he did when he got into the ring, his cornerman, the whole thing. But I can't believe that it's an easy fix. It's like Garcia has a left hook. You prepare for the left hook. You have to acknowledge it. You can't, what I mean? That's his Sunday punch. So he gets tagged in the first, what was it, the first round?
Literally the first round,
First round he got clipped with it. And that's when you should be the most aware of things like that. It's like, son, put your right hand up on your head, like fight here. Fight out of here. Make him beat you another way. Don't let him beat you the way everyone knows he's gonna, or everyone thinks he's gonna beat you, or he thinks he's gonna beat you. It doesn't make any sense at all. And so, like, I believe this Haney fight was the loss. The corner lost the fight for him.
You were saying that, and you think in particular perhaps his father, who was, ultimately the buck stopped with him anyway. Quickly, you talk about the left hook, right? And you say he's going to try and hit you with a left hook. And Ryan Garcia doesn't blind you with science. He's not. I don't think he's an ultra smart fighter or cerebral fighter. Really, he's a physical fighter, reactionary fighter.
And he'll
What about what
flail
Tank did? Because what about what Tank did? Tank's a southpaw, as you know, right? Tank holds his hand there and measures him, just daring him to throw that left hook, right? And when he throws the left hook, Tank rolls underneath and hits him with his own left hook counter from a southpaw stance and puts him over. That's IQ.
And that's knowledge. Yes, exactly. That's knowledgeable people that drilled him and prepared him properly for what he was going to face. You know what I mean? You don't go in there and do whatever you want and just think you're naturally I'm just naturally a better fighter than him. What happened? I think a lot of guys I think the Haney's got too emotional about this fight. You know what I mean? And when you get emotional, you're never, ever is the outcome good. You're always saying sorry afterwards when you get emotional. You know what I mean? And you let other things dictate and lead. It doesn't matter if that's in love or in boxing or fighting, whatever it is, business. You can't bring that in, and that's exactly what happened. And that's what his father. Well, that's what a trainer is not supposed to do. How can he give Haney the right advice if he's too emotional about the fight? Now he gets dropped. He gets dropped in the first round, and they hit the panic button. You know what I mean? Because if they're operating on emotions, this wasn't supposed to happen. They're not taking a professorial approach to what should be done at this point. It's crazy.
And you know what, Silk? And that's why they shouldn't be involved in all this WWE style histrionics and verbals and all that. Because can you imagine Ray Arcel or Eddie Futch being like, motherfucker, we gonna kill you on Friday, Saturday nights? It'd be ridiculous, wouldn't it? Can you imagine? I mean, Chappie Blackburn, maybe I can imagine him doing it from what I heard about him. He was done for murder at one point, wasn't he? And he loved to drink. But generally, think of these old masters. Can you imagine them? Can you imagine Angela and Dee getting involved in that rubbish?
Yeah. It's, of course they have an opinion, but they take that energy and they funnel it towards what they want to do. And I mean, you funnel it. That's exactly what you're supposed to do. When you start, I don't know, you're wearing that stuff on your chest and on your face, and he's like, if he dies, he dies, and he's talking all sorts of stuff like that. You're taking the purpose. I don't know. I've been in that situation where my father got emotional.
Yeah.
When I was fighting somebody, and the only thing he did was make it worse. You know what I mean? You can awaken that person could be sleeping on you, and all of a sudden he hears this, and he's, you know what I mean? They're batting things back and forth. Now you give him a reason to get up.
I want to know why Jonathan O'Halloran thinks he showed great IQ. Power, speed, and timing, sure. Mental strength, well, sure. That's an entry level of thing, right? But I still don't see this IQ from Ryan Garcia. And I thought he nearly blew it. He nearly blew the fight as it was, even though he couldn't miss. When he hit the guy, not that he couldn't miss him, he couldn't not hurt him badly every time he connected sweeps. And he still nearly managed to throw it away to an extent, Yeah. By the way, I've got to wear these because it's harder to read the comments with these, even though the other things look cooler. So, just as you were, talk amongst yourselves while I just get this kind of image versus logistics sorted out. So and also Silk. Let's be honest, he didn't even try to make the weights. But you know what? People are loud in him. This is the mindset today, and this is narrative today. People are loud in him as this great psychological ploy meister, saying how brilliant he pretended to be nuts. And that kid is all over the place. He wasn't pretending to be mentally unstable. He is. We never said he couldn't. You said this. You never said he couldn't fight. You never said he couldn't win just because he's mad. Right. Okay. Yeah. So he wasn't. It wasn't an act. He really is all over the place. He was all over the place afterwards in the post-fight interviews. Yeah. But sometimes the one place of relative safety where it all makes sense is in the ring. So first of all, no, he wasn't doing this brilliant Oscar-winning job pretending to be nuts or mentally unstable. And secondly, since when has it been really clever, deliberately and cynically not make weight when you sign for a junior welterweight championship fight? I mean, to be honest, maybe they should say these fights can't go ahead. Because
you know what? I think they should have. listen, if he makes the weight, he's the champion right now. He'd be world champion. Now he did all that effort. He won.
He'd be one of them, Silk. Yeah, he'd be one of them. He'd be one of them. He'd be a WBC champion.
No, okay.
But you see what I'm saying? The reason I say it, Silk, because they don't care anymore. They do not. He doesn't care. Clearly, he doesn't give a toss about the belt.
Well, he could yeah. I guess. I mean, I guess he doesn't, but that will affect.
And they don't now.
Does it not affect his pay scale? Like, do we call
it certainly cost him money not making the weight. It certainly affected his pay scale that night. But this is what I'm saying. These days, I don't remember Jose Luis Castillo getting much credit for knocking out Corrales in a rematch when he came in heavy. Everybody said, "Well, you just cheated and you were unprofessional. You didn't keep your side of the bargain." And Corrales won the fight that counted. Yeah, Corrales, Chico won the fight that mattered. Whereas now everybody's lauding Garcia is a genius. He had us all fooled. So clever getting that 3 pound weight advantage. What are we saying here?
I don't think that was any advantage, though.
Interesting, Silk. I've seen some people whose opinion I respect, or at least I think I respect. Whereas I know I respect yours, but I've seen some people's opinion I think I respect saying, because I've got to be honest, I never had to do weight like that. I made welterweight in the amateurs when I was 34 years old. I made it kind of easy, to be honest with you. But I could never have gone to light welter, so I know I wasn't doing it too easy. But anyway, people are saying that 3.5 pounds nearly that he didn't shed made a massive difference. They said the sacrifice that Haney had to make it, which Ryan didn't have to make, and you will Scully said this. He said, and you will never get that back in that rehydration period between the weigh-in and the fights. He said that absolutely was significant, that 3.2 pounds he didn't shed and didn't try to shed, presumably.
Yeah.
Some people said it made a big difference. He looked a lot stronger. His advantage was power. And if it's going to help anything, it helps power. You say 16-ounce gloves are more damaging than 8-ounce gloves.
Yeah,
so how does this stack up with your cavalier attitude towards size in a ring?
Weight does make a difference if you're transferring that power from if you're using your weight with your punches, if you're twisting from your core, doing all the rest of that stuff. So yes, it is relevant. It does make a difference. Yeah, at the same time, if you've done your job skill-wise against somebody, like if you've really acknowledged what this individual, what he fights like, and you've trained you've prepared properly for this type of fighter, it's not going to make a difference because everyone hits hard if they turn it over, right? And I don't know if there are people that fight 140 pounds that were probably better punchers than Garcia, but I mean, I don't get the 3 pounds is going to turn him into like a Mugabe or any other type of hard Julian Jackson. I don't think it's doing that. I think a lot of it is.
People say the other guy's going to be weaker because he made the weight and he had to go through a weekend experience which you didn't go through. Listen, the point is that we know none of them come in anywhere near the weight limit on the night anyway these days. So Haney has been accused of being a weight brawler and a hydration or manipulator in the past, coming in at 165 on the night supposedly.
Yeah.
All I know is he looked a lot smaller last night. But the argument is, and I do think Scully made the argument too, the argument is that it's the other guy having to squeeze himself down that last extra couple of pounds, ounces even, which you didn't do, and you didn't go to that place, and that it weakens a guy. Because when you said that you never.
You have talked the other way. It does give them a lot of mental resolve too. It gives them a reason. It gives them you have to go in there with a little bit of that ire, like some sort of anger, frustration, aggression. Sometimes it wakes up that too. So it's like 6 of this, half a dozen of the other. You never know what it's going to do. Everything affects everyone differently. Whether it's
Yeah, I think really if you're gonna. I do think they have weight divisions for a reason. I have to think they have weight limits for a reason. And I think if you're going to fight for a title, these days we see it too often, fighters just drop belts like confetti, whether it's the belt they already held or whether it's the opportunity to contest a belt. They drop those like a bad habit these days. And I have a conflict on that, Silk, because part of me thinks, great, the sanctioning bodies are less relevant. I keep saying the belts don't matter. That's my whole big mantra. So this is the manifestation of that. What's the problem? But obviously I'm torn. Part of me thinks, well, no, ideally we should have this sense of a world number one and a title and the prestige involved in holding that position, with your life. And that obviously that involves making weight and coming in weigh in what you're supposed to. These days, the fighters, they don't care anymore. They think about the economics. I mean, that it's a bit odd that Garcia lost money because he said he. But do you know what? Somebody suggested this, right? Someone said maybe the deal that the Haneys would have squeezed out of him if he hadn't have already said it himself. Listen, if I don't make weight, I'll give you $500,000 for every pound I'm over. Maybe he thought that was a kinder squeeze than they'd have put on him at the 11th hour if they'd have said, listen, we're not fighting unless. Do you know what I mean? It's possible.
It's really simple, and I don't know. I can't buy it. I can't buy the fact that it made that much of a difference. I mean, obviously financially it made that much of a difference, and Ryan didn't care anyway, but he was making all sorts of erratic decisions. I mean, I thought it was like foreshadowing when he had the Titanic violinists and cello players in his room before he went out. It was like they were playing music as the ship was going down.
You know the last guy to do that?
No.
Ike Quartet.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah.
That's really good. That's not bad, Ben.
That's one of your kind of style. Yeah. We've got a question here from Can't Talk Underwater is the channel title, the account. He says, do you think Garcia's strange behaviour pre-fight should have potentially excluded him from competing? I was worried for his health and ability to fight. Did he get a checkup? What do you say, Silk?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think so. I thought he was both physically, mentally capable to fight. I don't know. It's just something that he has erratic behavior, and I think he's always kind of been that way. It's just that no one's really put the microphone in his face beforehand. But you look at the way in which he fights, you look at the way in which he talks, you look at the way in which he trains, and
I believe he's got ADHD. He's
got issues that have been there from the beginning, and they just had been exacerbated, or he had the camera in front of him more. I think the Tank fight, that loss kind of like opened him up and just said, I'm going to be me. I got to be me. I can't hold it in anymore, kind of thing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Ishan Pickering, who's a former British, European and Commonwealth champion who trained under the legendary Brendan Ingle, who obviously trained Nassim Hamed, Prince Nassim. He said the reason why I didn't write Garcia off in the build-up, he said, is because I remember what Brendan told me. And he said, you don't have to be mad to box, but it helps.
It does help. It does help because you punch with purpose. I've been in the ring before when I haven't had that same type of aggression, and you hit people with shots, and it's just not the same thing. You hit a person with a sense of desperation. It's an absolute different thing. And I think and Garcia, he was wound up, and he was aggravated, and Devin, more than anyone, his father really took him to that point. Whereas, he made him close his fist tighter. He made him focus his eyes better. It made him faster. It made him like harder, and he gave him an energy that he had no business getting him. Maybe Devin could have sleepwalked him. You know what I mean? Through this, and systematically ended up putting a beat down on him, which I thought, that's conceivable, but that didn't happen. That didn't happen because somebody awoke and that little terror inside of Ryan. And it was one of the best things I've seen Ryan do, and I haven't seen him do. Like, he's fast, he hits hard. It's like it's almost like he flails and he comes out with punches really quick, and they're never really purposeful. It's like scattershot. But one of the best things I've seen, like, he hooked off the jab. I was like, wow, that was beautiful. Hooked off the jab and dropped Devin. I thought, okay, I can see the fist stick skills now. I can see that it's on. I mean, it wasn't visible against anybody else I had seen. Like, he got guys hurt and he'd go all out. And I remember seeing something like Oscar De La Hoya would do that too. Like, even though he's obviously highly skilled and all that kind of stuff, when you get a guy hurt, he just like flail, go crazy.
Like when Fernando Vargas, when he took out Vargas, that was beautiful.
Yeah, but when he puts his punches together and throws them with purpose, it's a beautiful thing to see, and it's devastating.
Sean B has just said, monetize this channel. It's better than all the others. We are monetized, and so far we've earned about 17 cents on the cab fare home, haven't we, Silk? We are monetized, but it just we need to get a lot more views before we
wait a minute.
money even worth splitting.
You said we. Are you speaking French? Because you have the bank account, not me.
Yeah, listen. Oh, yeah. Let's be open and transparent. I'm the one who's got. It's my channel technically, insofar as I owned the channel before it became Sugar, Silk and Stretch. It was my account. So the money goes to my account. So far, we've only had one payment. The guys are very aware of how much money we've made, but until it's worth even splitting into 3 ways, then until we've got enough for a 3-way, basically, right? We're not going to do anything. Right. Is that what we said or something similar? Yeah. But
yeah.
But listen,
there's a thing called thirds, but it's all right.
But I want to talk about the scoring, right, Silk, even though Gary's not here, because I thought he was because when I said I had it a draw and I realised I had my scorecard up wrong, I actually had Garcia by 1 point. Gary was just saying Ryan well beat him. Now, here's why I don't believe he did. This is my breakdown of the 12 rounds, okay? I'll be brief. So the first round, where Garcia hit him with a big left hook straight away and had his knees wobbling all over the place. I actually scored that to Ryan 10-8. I know some people would have called it 10-9, but I think no, he had him nearly out. Let's give him a 10-8 without the knockdown. So first round I gave 10-8 to Garcia, right? Then the next 4 rounds I gave to Haney. The second round Haney definitely came back and won it. And then after that, he in the third round he won it even bigger, and he actually staggered Garcia with a left hook of his own, right? So it looked like he was a bit of an early scare. Then he was on top of the situation. So I'm just trying to access the card again. So I didn't give so after 5 rounds I had him 4-1 up, but he'd lost one by a 10-8 margin. That's Haney, right? Okay, so after that, so then come the 6th round. I scored it even. Some people might have given it to Ryan. So in the first 6 rounds, I've only given Ryan 1 round, but it was the first by a 10-8, and he had got a share of the 6th. Then you got a 7th round when he bashed him all over the place. I actually gave him a 10-7 for that, but with the point deduction, I had to call it 9-7. That is the proper way you got to do it. You've got to take a point off. So I've given him a 9-7, Ryan. Then I think he lost rounds 8 and 9 by 10-9 margins, right? Then he won the 10th and 11th big. I gave him 2 10-8s. Then I thought he blew the last round, fooling around, sticking his tongue out. So I actually gave it to Haney. So I ended up with 112, 111 with the point deduction. Without the point deduction, I'd have had Garcia by 2 points, which I think is about exactly right. Because in rounds I had it 7-4-1 Haney, but 10-point must system, I had Ryan 2 points clear if he hadn't squandered one of them. Make sense? So anyone who was saying that's a ridiculous score, don't be ridiculous, can suck it, quite frankly, because you don't know how to score a fight. You don't have a scorecard of your own. And I don't mean Gary. I'm not talking to Gary with this. He gets a different passport to these other idiots. All right, even though he's talking the same as some of those guys. But that's how I saw it.
Well, that's what happens when you lead, when you're looking at a fight, and again, you're looking at it through emotion. Right, you're caught up in the emotion of the fight, and you're not caught up in the because punches and things that happen, they're big emotional things. You know what I mean? And all of a sudden, and the drama drops when after the guy gets up and all the rest of that. So 100%. I thought it was a close fight, and I was like, okay, I could see this. I mean, I wouldn't feel right if it went to Devin. I wouldn't think it would be right, but I could see how the judges could, unlike the semi-main event.
I'm really glad to hear you say that, because I thought Gary was going to be on today, and I thought he'd be saying, "Oh, shut up! I got it right again. He beat him out of sight. I told you get the shock of your life." I thought this is all it's going to be, and all I've got is your demure, logical tones agreeing with me. That's fantastic.
Every once in a while, we'll meet on the same road.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
But Haney showed no ability to being able to adapt at all, which was crazy to me. Like, when you're that level fighter, you have to be able to change up, because what you were doing wasn't working. And yes, like we said in the middle rounds, when he ran off some rounds, he went for a run, but he just wasn't able to shut down Garcia's left hook. And I think that was and that's the punch to look for. That was all that's the only thing he had to look for, and he wasn't able to.
Because he's got a decent right hand as well, Garcia, but it's not the problem that the left hook is it? You know, and
yes,
do you know when I look at when Evander Holyfield fought Tyson the first time, one of the big things he had figured out how to do is block Tyson's left hook, and he was just catching. It sounds obvious because you think anybody who's been to a boys' club knows how to do this, but it's harder to implement it at elite level sometimes, right? But he was blocking it like that all the time. Holyfield had this hand pinned here, and he was just blocking it with that glove all the time. And that can make the difference because the guy gets frustrated. It's not working. His Sunday punch is not coming off. You know.
Yes. And then it's not like Mike is not going to start. Okay, well, let me start trying to score with the right uppercut. You tend to just try to keep forcing like a circle into a square kind of thing, and that's exactly what you have cornermen for. They're to give you an option. And if everything's caught up and everything's an emotional thing, like think of it like this. Look, Devin Haney's father said, "Look, if he dies, he dies. We're going to beat him. We're not just going to do this. We're going to do this, that, and the other, blah, blah, blah." And Devin Haney's thinking that's exactly what's going to happen. I mean, he loves his father. His father loves him. It's like it's what they feel, and everyone thinks this is a foregone conclusion. So when you get to the fight, and the first thing that happens in that fight is that you get gonged, like he got dropped. Your whole aspect, your whole who you are, how you feel, how you operate, are you a good boxer? All those things are called into question immediately.
Does he deserve some props for getting through it? Because I really thought he wasn't getting out the 7th round, Silk.
Yeah, I mean, there's one time I think it was the first time when he went down. I was kind of like I
thought maybe first round KO, real big sensation.
He barely got up. You got
worried for him.
Yeah,
you got worried for him, didn't you, when you saw those legs go straight away?
I mean, it's great hurt. It's great heart. You know, it's almost like it's not a conscious thing when you get up. It's like this: what you do as a human being, as a living organism, you're meant to stand up. So that's what you're going to do. So it's not a conscious decision to get up. But a lot of people, and you can't control how hard you get hit. So how dark you go when you're out, and none of the, you hit the canvas, and all of a sudden all these, your brain starts firing, wiring, and rewiring itself so to give you the coordination to get up, and you got 10 seconds for the synapses to start firing and reconnecting so you can stand up. And that's not something that you consciously make a decision of. That's just something that happens because that's just the physical gift you have.
It's interesting you say that, because somebody once said to me when I was a teenager, who was in the pub at one of my dad's favourite local watering holes, and they all used to talk boxing in there. And someone said to me, we're talking about Dennis Andrews versus Thomas Hearns, and the way he got up about 17 times at some point, Andrews, and kept going back down. And somebody said to me, that's not bravery, that's just instinct. It's not. They said, that's actually not bravery. He said he didn't know whether it was Christmas Day or Thanksgiving Day, and that's what it is.
Yeah, exactly. That's, it's just the way the mind works. It's like you're supposed to be standing and moving, and there's the element of danger, all the rest of those things. But, at the same time, those guys that take a shot and they stay out for a 10 count, that's not they of course they wouldn't want to do that either, but just physiologically, that's just how things are. But having said that, this fight went on for a while, and he was getting hurt, and he was consistently getting hurt every time he was getting hit. So he did it was a lot of heart that brought him through.
His recovery was pretty good as well.
Yeah,
he was capable of coming back the next round like nothing had happened. And he was back on his game plan.
Yes, exactly. But I think it was an errant game plan. I don't think it was a good game plan at all. I think it was one they were thinking this guy really is soft. They didn't prepare for him like he was the threat that he was. And you just, I think if you have somebody, I mean, I can't even say that if he had someone experienced in his corner who had fought a lot, you know what I mean, would have taught him or done anything different, because, I mean, it just looked a mess going in, you know what I mean? Everything about him. But I don't understand how they're judging him psychologically and thinking like physically he's not going to be able to perform.
Well, I mean, I remember you saying that at the time, people in the build-up were saying, should he even be allowed to fight? And you were saying, yeah, why not? Because it's a different remit, the psychologist or the counsellor or the therapist. And if you're a professional fighter, in what way is he demonstrably unfit to fight? And you couldn't see one, and clearly there wasn't one. So that's the end of that argument, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. It was and what's up with all these, again, the fathers they're wilding over their sons. Like, I just don't get it. You know what I mean?
Well,
Like,
did you see Ryan's father clashing with Eddie Hearn in the corridor?
yeah, I was gonna say that's another
Yes.
one. I'd never seen this man. Well, I've seen a lot of Garcia's fights.
I've never seen him though.
I'd never seen him in the mix before at all. Never a word.
And suddenly he's announcing himself in the Smack Talk social media stakes.
Yeah, I mean, he's on camera. He comes in front into Eddie's picture, and he just starts talking. You're a piece of this, that, and the other. And
Eddie always gives as good as he gets, though, doesn't he?
Oh yeah, he comes back. That's That's so funny. And he said Boots Ennis, and everything chilled out.
Yeah, he said, "Who you got?" And he said, "Boots Ennis." Do you want it? And Boots would take care of Garcia.
Oh yeah,
they're talking about Conor Benn, Silk. They're saying maybe Conor Benn and Ryan. It's a big fight.
Yeah, that's a big fight, and in England, I'm sure.
Exactly. Well, that's what Ryan was saying. He said, "Sure, let's run it at the O2. I'll break your spleen or something intellectual and classy, to evoke the old days of Joe Louis." So yeah. Do you know what? We seem remarkably in sedate agreement on the events of last night. Quite honestly, is there anything else that strikes me as relevant? I wanted to get off my chest. I wonder. You agree on the scoring, more or less. That you understand where I was coming from, and you think it was a close fight. We agree. We both agree it wasn't an act on Garcia's part, but it didn't mean he couldn't fight either. Just because he won, it doesn't mean it's an act. But at the same time, at no point did we say he shouldn't be in a ring in the first place, because lots of fighters have various issues going on. The weight, you don't think was a factor. I'm not so certain, but I figured you would say that. I understand where you're coming from. I'm trying to think. Was there anything else that occurred to me about the whole thing?
Here's what I'm thinking. Here's what makes boxing better, and here's where they failed to make it better on a couple of points actually. After the fight, win, lose, or draw, the fighter, the manager, the trainer, the cornerman, you have to go to the press conference.
Yeah.
There's no dodging it. You know what I mean? It's just not. It's not right. It's
face
not
the music.
You have questions. Yeah, face the music. You have questions that we need answers to, and you need
Hagler
to be.
Didn't go.
And they're hard. Yeah, it doesn't matter. It doesn't
Marvin
matter.
Hagler didn't go to the Leonard one. It was the next day, I believe. The press conference at the time.
So you mean he went the next day, or he didn't go at all?
He didn't go to. There was one the next day. He went to the immediately post-fight presser, because I remember him saying,
"Okay,
I really hate the fact that they took it away from me and they give it to Sugar Ray Leonard of all people."
Yeah.
And because you know what he did as well. I remember what Marvin Hagler said. Right, he said, "I realized I thought I beat him in the last few rounds to make him more successful." He came up with the word "successful" in his confusion. He was more successful than Ray, apparently. But in any case, but he didn't go to. There was definitely a big press conference the next day, and he said he said to Petronelli, "Goody, I guess, do I have to go? I'm down." And he didn't go in the end, so Leonard went there on his own in a yachting cap.
Yeah. Well, I don't mind that. The day he went to the one that counted. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He's a man. He's like, okay, listen, this is what happened. I'll say I didn't like it or whatever. But there's so many questions to answer, and for a guy to just be like, you know what I mean? Like, no, we're not going because. Oh, you gotta face the music. This is the man who put his son in the line of fire, and his son chose to go in the line of fire too. Yes, but now there needs to be some questions answered. And you don't feel like it and all the rest of that kind of stuff. But guess what? The other thing was there was no mic in the. You can't hear what the cornerman is telling. Like, what is he saying to Devin Haney? What is he saying to his son at this point?
Do you know what? That has gone out the window, hasn't it? That's another recent trend amongst all this. Along with the era that brings us the ceremonial weigh-in and the actual real closed doors weigh-in and all the rest of it, and the fighters who don't even want to make weight and they just drop belts like confetti, we've got this thing where we're not hearing what people are saying in the corner half so much anymore.
Yeah, I don't even know if we ever did, but it's definitely.
No, we used
less
to still. I swear, we used to hear it a lot. It used to be standard.
I never heard it. I know that it was never. I mean, it was never really in the corner of my fight. I mean, you need to have a parabolic microphone. These guys wearing it on like trainers and
talking to Hagler Leonard, I can tell you a whole bunch of soundbites from that fight in the corner.
Okay, that may be true, but there's a ton of other fights besides that, and you just don't hear it. It should be on every comment.
In England, we definitely did it. We would listen into corners as a matter of course in England. You'd hear certain things, even in relatively nothing fights, you would hear the corners. Yeah. I've been on TV myself with a fighter, and they had me. They had what I was saying to him, played on Sky TV.
Yeah.
So it has happened.
It's a major part of boxing, and it's something that, like, the fans who watch it, they don't get an opportunity to learn, and you don't really get a chance to understand what the fighter's thinking, what he's doing, what he's going through, why is he reacting the way he's reacting, and that's probably because what his cornerman's telling him. I'd love to hear what his father said to him after he got dropped in the first round. And
absolutely. It's so relevant. It's massively, but like I say, we do have it in the UK because Saj Ali has just said that's why UK commentators are frequently apologising for the language, because things like, I'll give you another example. I mean, I'm going back. They do it currently too, but George Francis, after the first round of Bruno Tyson 2, he said, "Frank, you're fucking slow, Frank. Sort yourself out for fuck's sake, Frank." And they would apologise for that language. And you must realise it's a very emotional moment, and forgive us for the airways being polluted in that fashion.
Yeah.
So they definitely do it.
So maybe that's why they don't do it in the U.S. Meanwhile, 95% of the population swears. So
yeah, and shoots each other and stuff, and does drugs.
I didn't say that, but they do swear.
Yeah.
They swear a lot. But I don't know, even if there's some sort of like 10-second delay, I don't know, something. And I know the conversation can get very heated in the corner, but generally, like in the issue of Devin last night, I don't think his dad was swearing at him. I don't know exactly what he was doing, but swearing at him wouldn't be it.
No. But you must remember, by the way, you're blowing it, son.
Oh, yeah.
You have to remember that. So that, like I say, I've seen plenty of fights where they show what's been advised in the corner, says Sister Morphine. I love the names of some of these accounts of our people who follow the show. Sometimes I wonder why they'll tell a fighter, "You've got this," when obviously they don't. Does lying help? That is a great, do you know what that reminds me of, Silk? And that's a great question in general that you will enjoy, no doubt. When Frank Tate got battered by Michael Nunn, Jesse Reed was trying to inject as much positivity into him as he possibly could. And he kept saying, he's ready to quit. He was saying Nunn was ready to quit. He hadn't lost a round and had hardly been touched. And he said, he's ready to quit. You got this guy. He said, this guy is all yours. And he kept saying, short, quick steps, son. Short, quick steps. And but is that something you have to do? Because if you told him the truth, then it'd be over. This guy is standing on your head.
That's what
happens. Outclassing you.
Yeah. Well, there's two things, right? There's experience. Having the experience of being in that position before really helps. And then it's understanding the other guy's, how he comprehends stuff. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, you've got to know the guy.
Yeah, you have to know him. You have to know him. It's so important because, there are a lot of fighters. There are a lot of trainers that understand, okay, you have to be in shape and stuff like that, but they don't understand what motivates an individual. And that's why, or what motivates a fighter, or what motivates a particular fighter. Like every single fighter is different, what motivates them.
If I was in your corner, and you had a bad round, I'd say, Ferdinand Pacheco says you're looking scared. That's what I'd use to try and light your fire.
Yeah, and it depends on what you're trying to get, right? Like if you're trying too hard, sometimes it's like you don't tell them necessarily you're trying too hard. It's just like you say, listen, I want you to just focus on not getting hit for the next 30 seconds, a minute, or just take this whole round off and make sure he doesn't hit you. Because at that point, when you change the pace of the fight, all of a sudden this guy's reaching for you, and as a fighter, you start seeing openings at that point because you're not trying to hit him, which puts on those blinders. All of a sudden, he's saying, all I want you to do is to look at this fighter. All I want you to do is to see him. And so you go in there and you see him and you're like, oh, okay, I get it now. I'm slowing down. I see where the punches are coming from. I see what he's trying to do. Then the next round, you can go back in and you can start, countering.
I remember Jimmy Tibbs. Do you remember the Bradis Prescott, the Colombian puncher who knocked Amir Khan out?
Yeah.
So Kevin Mitchell boxed him and did a good number on him. He outboxed him and didn't make the mistake Khan did. But in the going into I believe it was a 10-rounder, I think. Might have been 12, but either way, going into the last round, Jimmy Tibbs, a great trainer, said, listen, this last round, right, I don't care about you hitting him. I just don't want him hitting you. That's all. And that was, he said, just go on your bike.
And that was it. And I suppose he didn't hit him.
No, he didn't. And then Kevin got the decision because he knew how dangerous the guy was. And I think, that's, it's, people make the point sometimes. There's a difference between a good coach and a good cornerman. Some boxing trainers are both of those things. Some of them are neither, I guess. And some of them are only one or the other, right?
Yeah. No, absolutely. I don't know. It's so interesting. I would give anything to hear their corner work and hear what was going on. It's just so that side of boxing is what people need, because people really understand like what's going on in the ring, and those kinds of things will really explain everything to you know what, even if they did this, if they could record it, let's say you had another individual who's with the broadcast team, he had the earplugs in and he's hearing what's going on in the corner, and then he could translate it to us so you could hear what's going on. We don't have to hear the whole, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
If they're cussing too much and using language you don't like, okay, so this guy's going to say, you know what he said in the middle of the round, in between rounds, he said he should this.
He said, for goodness sake, Frank, you're awfully torpid out there. You have to say, to try and filter out the more kind of demotic feel.
Yeah, but even to know what he's asking for, you know what I mean? Did he tell Devin, you know what, Devin, you're not picking up that left hook. It's not on your radar. Get your right hand up and just kill his chances of throwing it. Like, it's like this. If I'm boxing and I see somebody fighting like this, I'm not trying to go here. I'm trying to go somewhere else, right?
Body or the other side.
Yeah, if a guy's got a great right hand and someone's coming at me like this, I'm not trying to throw the right hand. I'm looking at something else. And that's being able to think ahead as a fighter. It's like you start giving a guy, you take away options and you give him an only option. Then when he comes to this side, like if I'm going here, he's going to start throwing the left hook. I can get under it. So I'm actually leading with my defense. I'm dictating which way the fight's going to go with my defense. It doesn't always have to be done with the offense. Right?
Do you think it's fair to say that if he had removed his ability to hit him so easy with a left hook, then Garcia doesn't win the fight? I think it could have been that simple. Because this is the thing with Gary. Gary was talking about IQ. I think he's got boxing IQ. And I said, get out of here, Gary. He's got speed and power, but he don't got IQ. And I said, Bernard Hopkins has got IQ. He said, no, I'd say, and he said, no, I'd say he had boxing fundamentals, not IQ. And I said, no. Loads of fighters have got fundamentals.
He doesn't have fundamentals. What he does have, like an incredible amount, is reflex. His reflexes are just, they're just on another level. That fast twitch, it's even beyond fast. It's crazy. One of the hardest things to do is, defend against somebody that has that kind of reflex. As soon as you punch or make a punch, and they're able to come punch on top of that, that's extremely unique. Very few fighters have that. Like Camacho had it, Ali, Sugar Ray Leonard, Tommy Hearns. Like I remember in my fight with Tommy, and I remember he hit me with the right hand that dropped me in the 9th round. And I just saw it here. I saw it here, and I knew exactly what it was all about. But I didn't even see it. After that, I just see him pulling it back, like the reflex. And he's one of these kind of guys that can hit very hard without pulling back and winding up. So there's no tell, right? And it's the same thing with Garcia. There was no tell. It was just like it was just going forward. There was no wind up. It was just whap. It was right there.
And that's harder with a left hook, right? To just pull the trigger on a left hook like that. I would say it's a little easier with a straight right than it is with a left hook. The ability to do that with no wind up with a left hook is quite a gift.
Exactly. Now, yes, the right hand's already back. It's set. So all you have to do is go forward. But the left hook, there has to be some kind of
you have to make it happen. Yeah.
Yeah. You have to pull it back first. You have to set it and let it go. And yeah, he was able to do that, and it worked extremely well for him last night.
Sarge has asked what's next for either man. One point I think we should make clear as well, which we haven't officially discussed this yet. He's still the WBC like welterweight champion of the world, Haney. He hasn't lost that title because Garcia didn't make the weight. So Haney, presumably, I mean, I saw one of the other guys, Raymond Hales, I think it was, earlier on in the comments say that Haney has intimated that he may move up to 147, and I think Garcia has intimated a similar thing. But at the same time, I know Haney said, I would love a rematch where we both make the weight. That's what, you know. So whether they will run it straight back or whether Garcia is going to fight someone else, like whether it's, you know,
well, first of all,
Crawford,
Haney has to take at least 3 months off because he was concussed 3 times at least. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like just because he didn't lay out for a 10 count, it doesn't mean his brain isn't damaged. He's deeply damaged right now.
People are accusing the referee of trying to hold Haney up a bit. You know, very biased towards Haney and trying to keep him in the fight.
No, I don't think so. I think Harvey Doc did a good job. I mean, look, you know, Garcia was doing this, you know, shoulder roll thing or whatever, and was giving him his back, all that kind of stuff. He could very easily, after how many times did he do that?
Could have took a point off for that too.
He could have taken a point off that many times. You know what I mean?
Because you're not supposed to do that, are you? He is turning his back on people. He was doing it
I made the comparison of when Ali fought Jimmy Young, and Jimmy Young, every time Ali started to get, you know, once he started to get his momentum up, he'd stick his head outside the ring. You know, that's a knockdown. That's called, you know, you're either cheating or you're, you know what I mean? Or you need a break. Which one is it? But you're not allowed to do that. You can't, you know, and so he turns his back to Devin, and Devin hits him in the back, and then the referee's warning him for hitting him in the back. Well, I don't know which way it goes. I think Harvey did as best he can. He gave some to Devin, and he gave some to Ryan, and he warned them, but he certainly could have taken points off Ryan.
Sister Morphine says Haney's pops is quite unhinged. I can imagine him telling Devin something harsh. His dad needs a new position on the team, a silent, distant position. Japanese fathers aren't the same. The Japanese reference, I'm guessing, is it because I don't know if Sister Morphine happens to be Japanese. I'm trying to unravel the significance of the Japanese reference.
What's his name also has a father, right?
Anyway,
yeah. And his father's in his corner, and he's kind of pertinent to his development and stuff like that. So I don't know where it is, but
oh, this is Tona. Hope Hamage.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Yes. Okay, I get it. She's called Sister Morphine because Tona, I didn't even know it was you. I got you. So it makes perfect sense you were talking about Japanese things.
Yeah, her father's Japanese. Yes, she's I believe. Yeah. So what were you saying? Sorry, and you were saying?
Well, I was just saying that she was saying that Bill Haney is quite unhinged and he needs a new silent position, a new silent and distant position on the team, which is a bit like getting fired by the sound of it.
Yeah, it really is. And here's the thing, I highly doubt that's going to happen, and whether it's because he won't find anybody else that's going to care as much. But when you say care as much, as a fighter, you misinterpret what care is. You know what I mean? Like he's used to a certain comfort and a certain thing with his father. I don't know what was his father, his trainer from the beginning.
He's been involved for a long time. I know that. I do know that they had this issue. Did he have trouble getting to Australia for the Cambosis fights because he had some
his father? Yeah, his father had a record or something.
So, and Ben Davison was involved with Haney at one point, you know, and then Ben Davison. I don't think Ben Davison had any problems getting to Australia. I think his problem was getting to America because of the
I'm talking about even before that, like who started him as an amateur and who.
You can imagine it was his dad, can't you? I don't know the whole kind of dynasty story, but you'd imagine it was his father, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a sad story because as as uh as strong as his father is, as you see how dominant he is, like he's got the belts and he's up there and he's talking about we and I want him to and he's going to because I dictate. He's a very strong, proud father in the corner, and his presence is so strong that maybe Devin doesn't have, like, you have to really go to a dark place in order to tell your dad, listen, this isn't going to work anymore. And that's one of the things that I find so amazing about Roy Jones Jr., what he did, that decision that he made after his father had, his whole life, that's all he'd ever known. And he was able to make that decision to say, listen, Dad, let's say this over. That
and
is
am I right in thinking that you have that trainer, Alton Murkison, on the show next Sunday?
Yeah.
Is that right? Because that was the guy that trained Roy Jones
Yes.
once his dad was no longer doing it. It was Alton Murkison.
Yeah. And there's so many questions and so much on the psychological side of boxing that Alton will know. And then looking into the side, the physicality of Roy Jones, which is just another level altogether. Like what we saw last night doesn't even compare to what we see out of Roy Jones.
No. And this is the thing. I think a lot of people reevaluated. You said that you thought Haney was better than that. He's not as good as you thought he might have been.
Yeah.
Because we knew Garcia could do that.
Yeah, I mean, you knew Garcia could do it, and I did think that it was a 50-50 fight, but I thought, given everything that, and not knowing Devin Haney's true depth of his talent, I thought that he'd be able to do it, but obviously I was wrong, and and that's the beauty of boxing. You can never be sure. I mean, even the fighters themselves, and they're the ones going into the fight, they don't call it accurately, and it's their fight.
Yeah, of course. I mean, that's why when we think of the predictions league and the prediction scores table, it doesn't make anyone Nostradamus, and no one's a genius because we all get it right and wrong. But
some of us are lucky. Like Stretch got lucky. Okay, I understand that.
Yeah.
He's on his kick right now. But when my kid Usyk gets in there and smacks Fury around, then we're going to talk.
That's only a month away, that fight.
Yeah,
it's only a month away. As I say, I've applied for accreditation, so we'll see what happens with that. It's
have you still got floating camels out there? What's going on? Wasn't there a big storm? With I don't know. Am I wrong? Didn't you see that? There was a big storm and flooding out there.
Floating camels.
Yeah.
I don't know. That must have eluded me. I mean, it all looks pretty sedate out in Riyadh, where most of these fights happen. I mean, I've got friends who've been out there with fighters. There's a guy called Barry Smith who I worked with him in the gym for years, whether it was the gym in Canning Town, the area of London's called, or there was another one in West Ham. And Barry he worked the corner with me a bunch of times. I'd use him as a cut man or a hand wrapper and stuff. Yeah, and he was always in the gym. Just those guys who just put their whole life into it, hoping one day the ship will come in. Yeah. Now he works with Anthony Joshua. He works with Ben Davison. He's his right hand man. So he works with Anthony Joshua, Lee Wood. All these guys. He had that Chris Congo who we did the watch along that time, who beat the Albanian kid. So Barry is living the life now and doing all these corners on TV, and he'll be going out to Saudi with he was out in Saudi with Anthony Joshua for the Ngannou fight anyway. He won't be necessarily going out to Saudi for Usyk because he doesn't have it in there, but yeah, it's interesting that sometimes the guy that you just know who's just one of them guys wrapping hands and holding buckets and training fighters and doing pads, and suddenly he finds himself in the glamour league, because it can happen in theory to any coach, can't it?
Yeah, it really can. Developing a fighter and bringing him to the forefront is such a skill. I mean, and it's such a there's only one way to get there, and there's so many ways you could, you know what I mean?
So many snakes you can go down instead of ladders you go up.
Yeah. I mean, boxing's full of them. And as soon as you start developing talent, there's just an endless amount of people trying to take that talent away. And
You know,
so, say
yeah.
what?
Just Raymond Hales just asked us where we think the Saudi involvement in boxing will go, and I was
Yeah, I mean,
just
I do like it. I know sometimes you just need fuel to get it off the ground. You know what I mean, or to get it through a rough patch or whatever. So I think the Saudi thing has been good because a lot of big fights are happening, and a lot of good fights are happening, and that's what we need in boxing. We need to
do you know
stand
what
up.
Gary's take was? Gary had a devil's advocate take on Friday night, yeah,
Okay.
because even in particular the 5 versus 5, five of Frank Warren's Queensberry fighters versus 5 of Eddie's Matchroom fighters,
Yeah.
including Deontay Wilder, who now is one of Eddie's team. But you know what Gary said? They're just throwing them to the wolves, and they're just sacrificing. That's not the way you move fighters. You don't just put them in with all, just put them in with each other. And he said they're only selling out to money, and that if they were doing the job properly and looking after fighters, with the same caution, the same kind of modus operandi that's nearly killed the game, basically. He said they should be doing that, and all they're doing is selling out to the oil money. That was Gary's kind of thrust.
Yeah. Listen, I think boxing is anybody from any walk of life can come into boxing and do well. And
Yeah.
that's kind of like it's needed. Sometimes it's aggravating, sometimes it's frustrating. But it's real, and it's how life really works. It's how business and opportunities really work. I don't think we should be closed off like the tennis association or NBA or anything else. Boxing is like anyone can come in. If you're good, anyone can come in. When it comes to managers and trainers, I think, and promoters, I do think there needs to be some sort of, listen, money rules, but there does need to be some sort of, you need to, we need to analyze them more than we need to analyze the fighters. I think those are the things that are hurting the game today.
Yeah.
The fighters aren't hurting the game. It's the people surrounding it, that second level. They're the ones that are hurting the game, and it can get so much better.
And you know what? I went to that press conference on Monday for Beterbiev versus Bivol this Monday
Yeah.
at the start of the week. And it was
Mhm.
also the press conference for the 5 versus 5, kind of quite
Mhm.
revolutionary new concept. And it was great, to be honest with you, Silk. It was really there was all the tunes as guys are walking on, including Hearn and Warren. They had the kind of lock, stock, two smoking barrels kind of pastiche about it all. These two kind of old, or the old and the young Cockney kind of supremos
Yeah.
going head to head with their fighters. They all had masks on. So Warren's team all had diamonds and hearts masks, and the Eddie's team all had spades or clubs. And then they said, "Will the heavyweight now reveal himself?" And Wilder takes off this spade, and he's like, "Bomb squad!" It was cool. It was showbiz. I
Yeah.
enjoyed it, because it's not as if they're hyping a dud show. They're hyping a good stacked card, and they're rolling the dice and saying, "Okay, this guy's
Yeah.
in a real 50-50 fight. So is this guy. So is this guy." And
Yeah.
and a loss doesn't have to be the end of the world, because someone's
Yeah.
going to lose.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but Gary had a more cynical take on it. I suspect sometimes he just wants to be devil's advocate, to be honest with you. But he was
Uh,
saying, "Nah, it's they're throwing him to the wolves. Really." He said they're going to lose. One of them could lose 5 of their best prospects. And I said, why do they have to lose them just because they're going to lose one fight?
yeah. And
They've
then
got to be characters.
fight your way back up, and people will
Thank you.
respect you. People will respect you even more because of it. What do you think about that Zhang Wilder fight?
Well, it's an interesting fight, isn't it? Because they both didn't set the world alight last time. They both lost to Joseph Parker. Wilder lost to him worse because I think there was an argument at least for Zhang winning the fight, whereas there was no argument whatsoever for Wilder winning the fight. He just got shut out. So, but I have a funny feeling Wilder may knock Zhang out. I don't know. That's my kind of instinctive knee jerk.
Yeah. Yeah, that would be the first reaction, that he's going to hit him at some point, because
Do you know?
Zhang doesn't particularly have head movement. He's not a
No,
defensive
exactly.
fighter,
So he's
and
not going to box him like Parker did. Exactly.
yeah,
So
exactly, yeah,
that was my knee jerk first feeling. If I had to put money on it, I think I would probably put it on Deontay for now. But Silk, as the fight gets closer and you maybe you hear things or you watch some of the kind of goings on. Sometimes you change your mind, don't they? Don't you? You know, I
Yeah.
know people changed their mind last night. As soon as, not last night, but on I guess on Friday, as soon as Garcia came in 3.2 over and didn't try to make the way. I know some people switched their prediction up. You know, which I don't want to go over old ground because you've said you think it's a blind alley, really. But I know some people. I know Frank Lotierzo, for instance, said he suddenly thought, well, maybe not then. You know, maybe I don't picking Haney anymore.
Oh, he pulled out of the Haney and went with Garcia.
Yeah, I think also Dennis Rappaport.
Yeah,
picked Haney officially, but he had a bet.
Yeah. So he was thinking Haney would do it, but he said the odds were too good. So
yeah, because you could get 7-1 on Ryan, which is great
so
odds.
he said that's crazy. Yeah, those are great odds.
And they were always a bit generous, to be honest with you. They were always a little generous based on the fact that people thought he was absolutely cock-a-hoop mad, you know.
Yeah,
so,
and I don't know why that should play a hand in it. I mean, I guess if you thought he was going to have a breakdown in the ring, like the Atomic Bull had against Lennox Lewis.
That's what Eddie Hearn suggested. Another Oliver McCall moment. That's what he said. Something's going to happen. Maybe he doesn't come out the changing room. He said maybe he quits on the stool. Maybe maybe he leaves the ring.
Well, I think he's just absolutely comfortable with being the erratic person he is. You know, what I mean? He's probably like somebody that's difficult to get along with because he's strongly opinionated about things that aren't necessarily reality.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I think that's always going to be, but anybody that needs something, that anyone that's, I mean, I don't know. I feel like, he's the kind of person that's he's still going to give 100%, even though if it's a crazy 100%. I don't.
Well, it's funny because some people have said, "No, I make him right." The elite ruling classes are a bunch of paedophiles, and there is this rather labyrinthine, sinister kind of subplot to all the world's affairs. And you know what? There probably is, Silk. But my strategy to try and heal that and try and correct that situation doesn't involve going into the local news agents saying, "Do you support pedophiles?" That's not the best way of dealing with it. I don't think.
And the biggest thing, what's really interesting is if you think only people with money are pedophiles, that's a big problem. Because somebody needs a rude awakening because that mess is all over the place. And
thank you. It's the idea that, because some people believe that, right? They believe in this Illuminati, don't they? And they think you've got to do really debauched, unspeakable things to get in there, like P. Diddy, and all that kind of trip.
Yeah.
And that's how you sell your soul to them. You debase yourself sexually and God knows how else. You sell your soul to them, and you get certain trappings of benefits like, material wealth and fame and leverage and influence. But you have to be in this coven where you do unspeakable things, or you turn your back on unspeakable things, or So
I know nothing about it, and I was happier knowing nothing about it.
Yeah. Some people go down a proper rabbit hole in it, though. I know, the unemployed weed smokers and stuff. I had one guy once who even said to me he would pay for me to get to his town, the train fare, if I just listened to him, because he uncovered all this stuff. And the reason he needed me was he needed to talk to Eddie Hearn or Tyson Fury or whoever it was. And I must have had not much on that week in 2017, because I actually went and I listened to all this stuff. And this guy said all this stuff he'd figured out, But what gives me pause is how has some unemployable figured all this out so well? The stuff that's eluded some of the more great thinkers of our age. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Ben, what was the before Saj? There was an exercise. There was a question before that.
That was Tona. She said, "Did you see what Stitch Duran said about the Tim Zoo Cup man fiasco?" Was that the one you wanted to know?
Yeah, that's the one. What was that about?
Well, let's see if she expands upon it. No, she's talking about. What did he say, Tona? What did Jacob Stitch Duran say? I imagine he was critical of the way the cut was handled in Zoo's corner, but if you could elaborate, that would be useful.
Yeah. All right. And what about Saj? Saj had a question.
They're talking amongst themselves, to be honest with you.
Oh, they are? Oh,
kind of.
Have at it.
Yeah. He did also say, plus in the 70s, we had a couple of dictators that bankrolled Muhammad Ali's fights. Well, you had Marcos and Mobutu.
Okay. Oh, so not maps. You're talking about something else.
No, not Harold Smith. No, he wasn't a dictator. He was a chancellor. He was just a huckster. Yeah, but I must admit, I'm fascinated with the whole Harold Smith saga. I think it's a brilliant story, and he came pretty close to making a big dent in boxing.
Yeah.
And only in boxing can you do that because he gave Manny Stewart and Tommy Hearns something crazy like $500,000 in a briefcase to agree to fight Cuevas, more money than they'd ever earned, and they walked out of the office with it. They didn't even have to call a lawyer. They just said, "Okay, we'll sign."
Yeah.
But he tried to do the same thing with Larry Holmes, and he put like $1 million on the table, and Holmes was too smart, and he said, "Nah." He said, "You can't just give me this money and think everything's." He said, "I need to think about this." But he was sweating and he had felt this terrible conflict because there was $1 million on the desk, and Larry was very interested in money, and he grew up dirt poor. But he was like, he said, I was sweating and I'm almost feeling, like I was having hot flushes. But I thought, no, I'm not just taking this money here and now. But whereas Ernie Shavers was offered this crazy signing bonus, once again, it was something mad like $500,000 or 750,000.
Wow.
And Ernie insisted on counting it all. They were all like rolls of, like these are hundreds and these are all 20s. And he insisted on counting every last bundle. And Harold was getting really fed up after hours. And he said, "Look, Ernie, man, come on, man, I wouldn't cheat you." And Ernie said, "Oh, no, I'm not worried about that, Howard. I just feel bad if you gave me more than you were supposed to."
That's funny. Yeah,
but someone needs to make a movie about that thing because I believe the guy lives in China or somewhere now. Someone, Dennis Rappaport told me.
That Smith
Harold
does
Smith,
now?
aka Ross Fields, yeah.
That he lives there now?
I heard he was in China at one point, and then Tim said he was because he did come back, and start working in boxing around the time of Larry Holmes's comeback. He was involved in something to do with that.
Oh,
after he'd done his time in prison.
wow.
But I would love to go. Can you imagine getting him as a guest on the show? That would be.
Yeah, that would be incredible. But until then, we have Alton Murkison. I can't wait to hear it. Alton, I'm sure he's got a rich memory of everything. It's going to be.
So that's next Sunday, right? This time next Sunday, it will be Sugar Silk, maybe Stretch, and Alton Murkison.
Yes, that would be nice.
That would be a good show, So we didn't get Stretch tonight, which is
Let me ask you again before we go, because I know we can't spend too much more time on this, but this year in boxing has been so far how better than last year, yeah?
So again, what has been?
Boxing this year has been better than the last few years, actually, in terms of interest and intrigue.
I think so, and some of it is down to the guy Turkey Al Sheikh. That even though some of those promotions, don't forget the big day of reckoning was still last year, but it was December 23rd. But it depends when you want to start that 12-month period. But I think things have been exciting. Certainly the last several months. Certainly the last 12 months from 12 months ago to now, for instance. Yeah.
And do you think the behavior of like Garcia and Haney and all that kind of stuff, do you think that really does reflect bad upon boxing? Do you think it really affects whether people watch a fight or not? I mean, because obviously I'm sure the pay-per-view numbers are going to come in and they're going to be pretty good numbers.
Well, they were huge for Tank versus Garcia, which was a year ago today kind of thing, wasn't it? It was exactly this time last year that Tank fought Garcia.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess they will be. I think there was more interest probably around was Ryan going to melt down or not, and more than they were actually trash talking each other and pushing each other and shoving each other, and the dad saying, "I'm sending my son out to kill you." I'm not convinced that sells a fight particularly, but I think some of the interest in Ryan in general sold the fight.
Yeah. Well, and what do you think of a potential Pitbull versus Garcia fight?
Well, that's a good fight, isn't it? Because I think the Pitbull could grind him down.
You do, huh? Maybe,
unless if he can block that left hook and walk through it to an extent,
yeah. It's funny because watching Pitbull's last fight, I don't know. There was something about the counters that Raleigh was throwing, and he was catching them, but he just didn't, for some reason. I don't know. It just obviously Pitbull's extremely strong, absorbent. He take punches, rolls with them, lean with them, whatever. But the kind of puncher, stiff puncher that Garcia is, it would like reverberate through the body. It would be a different kind of punch. I think that's a great fight. I'd love
it is
to
a great
see
fight. But is Garcia going to fight at light welterweight? Because I do not think he should be allowed to fight. And do it, fool me once, shame on you, and all that. But if he signs to fight anybody else at 140 and he holds a belt, right, Pitbull, if Ryan doesn't make it again, I don't think he should be allowed to fight, no matter what.
Really, why? If he doesn't, and he pays the penalty,
nah, you can't.
He doesn't get the belt. What difference does it make? It's not like he gets the belt.
It's a bad precedent, I think, Silk. We can't let him do it again. Do you remember Eddie Mustafa Muhammad and Michael Spinks too? That never happened.
No.
Eddie did make the weight, and in the end, Butch Lewis wouldn't let Michael Spinks fight him.
Oh, really?
He said no, forget it. They called it off because supposedly Eddie Mustafa said, mention Brownsville to Michael, and he'll be scared to death. And Michael replied, Brownsville, what's that? Something Eddie ate? That was
Yeah, Michael's seen his, Michael's seen fire and he's seen rain as well.
Exactly. So no, I don't think he should be allowed to do it again. I think we need to crack down on fighters not making weight, deliberately, cynically not making a contract weight. Never mind, you want to talk about belts or titles. Never mind even that. It's a contract weight, and there is a weight for a reason. And I am interested in your notion that 16-ounce gloves are more injurious than 8-ounce gloves, but you think that a stone advantage is a drop in the ocean. That is interesting.
With the gloves concept, that's really interesting. With the gloves concept, I just know that added weight is more power.
Scotty said you're 100% wrong, didn't he? Is that true?
He did. Yeah, but I don't understand how he could say that.
No, he said that Michael. He said this guy in particular, he didn't even name you, but he said the guy in question is very seriously knowledgeable guy, but he is 100% absolutely and totally wrong about this one. That's in Scully's style.
It's and I try to, and I'm trying to explain to it like a cadre of gentlemen who are, I believe, were boxers. Oh, but Kelly Pavlik agreed with me. So
did he?
Kelly Pavlik said, "Yeah, I could see that, and I understand why." And you know what? What a lot of guys don't understand is like if knockouts don't happen in the gym with 16-ounce gloves, they happen because there's an understanding that you're sparring. It's not a fight. It's not a competition. It's not to the death. It's not to the you're not getting paid to do it. In fact, probably if you're sparring with someone, you're paying them to spar with them, or you have an agreement between one another, and no one's trying to knock anyone out.
But knockouts do happen in the gym as well, like you say.
They do happen in the gym with two people that aren't coordinated. Like if there's no conversation beforehand, I have a fighter, you have a fighter, and they're both in the same division. We're like, oh, we're going to see who's the toughest. And the coach gets brave for their fighter. Knockouts happen. Yes, absolutely. If there's no conversation and understanding beforehand, knockouts in the gym happen. But what this was they were saying, well, it hurts more. It's like, since when do punches hurt? When topical punches, elbows, headbutts, you know what I mean? A thumb in the eye, those kinds of things. Yes, there's pain involved with that. But I specifically said, a punch that concusses you does not hurt. There's no pain involved in it. That's when people say, he's going in there and he's afraid. I'm like, afraid of what? Because it isn't pain. Maybe it's afraid of the loss, whatever it is, but it certainly isn't pain. As a fighter, you don't feel it when you get concussed.
No. I've got to take issue with Tona here, with the implications. She's like, I'm back in the contrarian on the glove weight. He has the knowledge. He does, but he's one of many people who have knowledge. Iceman John Scully has knowledge too. I got it. Gary Stretcher's got it. Emmanuel Stewart had it. So just because he's one fighter, very charismatic and handsome that personally, Tona, that doesn't mean you defer to everything he says. because he has the knowledge. Because all he's one of many in this context who have the knowledge. It's still relatively rare, oxygen we're breathing, but you can't just say Silk he has the knowledge, so he must be right about everything because he's.
No, she can say it, but you choose not to believe it. That's okay.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly.
She can absolutely say it. Tona, keep speaking your truth. I beg you.
I can not highlight these things in future. I could just make it treat them like they never happened. Unless I'm allowed to say that they can't say it.
Tona, speak your truth, baby. Always.
It
must be heard.
There's no such thing as your truth. There's only the truth. That was another one. Who was saying that recently? Someone says that online. All this thing about, I think it's Frank Lotierzo.
But Ben, I mean, come on, work with me here. Like, how is pain power? Pain isn't power. Pain is an absolutely different thing. Pain doesn't concuss.
You're right. Just because smaller gloves hurt more, what's that got to do with it?
Exactly. I mean,
what's gloves got to do with it?
Louis Resto and Collins, right? He took all the stuffing out. He was playing knuckle against his face. It was probably if we went from a 10-ounce glove to an 8-ounce glove, probably. Who knows? Maybe even a 6-ounce glove.
Maybe less, yeah.
And nothing on. The kid didn't get knocked down. He didn't get knocked out. None of that stuff.
You went to that fight, right?
No, that was the Duran fight. No.
Moore, yeah. Duran Moore. I thought you went.
No, not that fight. I didn't go to.
Oh, you know what? Someone went to, I know, but regardless. Yeah. But anyway, I mean, sure. So it doesn't necessarily mean that, that it's more powerful because it's not about the damage you do even necessarily. You're talking about the sheer power. But having said that, like I say, I do find that an interesting juxtaposition with your notion that don't worry about it. It's just skills. Don't worry if the guy's like 3 times the size of you. It shouldn't matter at all.
No, of course. If you're going to let a heavyweight unload on you, I mean, you have to have skills in order to get away from the punch, ride the punch, get under the punch, keep him turning so he doesn't have the opportunity to plant his feet. Of course, transference of weight, like you take someone who's 250 pounds and you have him punch you, it's gonna have an effect on you in something that you're not going to find too comfortable. I absolutely 100% believe that, but I also believe you have advantages in mobility and in terms of combinations, in terms of your work rate and all the rest of that kind of stuff. Now, so when you're talking about like weight dislodges the brain and moves it around in the skull, okay, I understand that. It's absolutely cool. But if you're riding and learning and moving, riding, leaning away from punches, moving, you're taking something off those punches, and you're able to, this is something that was done commonly, I guess, when there were less divisions. Weight divisions weren't that big of a deal as they are today. Like, we're arguing over 1 pound, 2 pounds, and these guys are like 20 pounds heavier than someone
Sam
else.
Langford. Somebody made that. Someone made that point today when a commentator, I think it was Douglas Fisher of Ring Magazine, was saying that it was a joke and that he'd been cheated, and they said, well, what about some of these heroes you champion like Sam Langford and Mickey Walker, who regularly give away 30 pounds like it was just like a free lunch, Sure.
And look, didn't Henry Armstrong, he went from lightweight up to welterweight and even further up, right?
I'll tell you what he did. Since you ask, he won the featherweight title first, undisputed featherweight championship against a guy called P.T. Saron, right? Then he stepped up in 1938. He wanted to fight Lou Ambers for the lightweight title, but he couldn't get a shot, whatever, couldn't nail it down at the time. So he fought Barney Ross for the welterweight title instead. So he went from featherweight, 126, straight up to 147. He beat Ross, 15-round points verdict. And then he dropped back down and beat Ambers after that. So he went featherweight, welterweight, then lightweight. Then guess what he did? So then he held 3 undisputed titles at the same time, from 126 to 147, right? Then he boxed Seferino Garcia for the world middleweight, for a version, actually, like the NBA, whatever, a version of the world middleweight title. And it was only 10-rounder for some reason. It was a 10-round fight. Don't ask me why, but that was a contracted fight. Although it was for a splinter of the world middleweight title, and he drew with Garcia when most of the pressmen at ringside apparently thought he won. So he could have been he wouldn't have been a 4-time undisputed champ, but he would have been a 4-weight champ, according to some people. You know,
yeah.
that's what Armstrong did.
Yeah, I mean, and that's amazing. And what did he like when he was fighting featherweight, and then he moved up to welterweight or middleweight or whatever? What weight did he come in at? I mean, he didn't have to move up to. All he had to do was be below the number of the division,
Yeah,
right? So he
exactly
could have
that.
been 130 pounds fighting somebody 160 pounds.
Exactly, which is why it's stupid when people talk about making a higher weight. You make lower weights. You get down to weight. That's making weight. You don't make a weight by going up. That's bogus. You know, so
Exactly.
because I know I ruined an MC. I told you about it off camera last week, I think, but I ruined a casual white collar boxing MC the other week because he was talking this rubbish about what Henry Cooper had to do to make heavyweight in 1963 against Cassius Clay, and he figured he had to be 14 stone 4 to make heavyweight
Yeah.
because he was so stupid he doesn't even realize that it was only 175 back then. There was no cruiserweight limit, and it certainly wasn't set at 200 pounds back in then.
Yeah.
It didn't change. That became 2003. They introduced a 200-pound cruiserweight limit. It used to be 190 and 195 according to WBA, as you know.
Yep.
So you get this rubbish. So no, you don't have to make higher weights. But anyway, Armstrong said he didn't even weigh his official weights half the time. He said his trainer would push him down on the scale.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. So weight does have its advantages and it has its disadvantages as well. But ultimately, more than anything, it's about the your abilities, right? Your attributes, and that's where it comes from. That's why I say, like, if you're a knowledgeable fighter, I mean, and you're fighting a heavyweight, yes, you know he hits hard. It's like you could fight somebody your own weight that hits hard and would give you a 10 count if they hit you as well. So you have to take your advantages and your attributes and you need to apply them against this heavyweight. Now, I'm not saying that, middleweight should fight heavyweights now, but what I'm saying is it's a common thing in the gym. It's absolutely common.
Yeah. Well, obviously we've all sparred with heavier guys and all the rest of it, but I think there's an unwritten agreement and understanding that if you're the bigger guy, you go a little easier on the power and you try and work on something else. And if you're the smaller guy, then you do what you do, and you throw your shots. It's fine. It's okay. Even welterweight and middleweight, they do that, So there's something in what you say, Silk. I just think when my theory is when you latch onto something, you give it everything you've got, and it's literally 110% in that direction. Whereas I feel sometimes there are nuances that need to be applied, but you're like, no, I've made this decision. This is where I stand on this.
That's not
so the hell
true.
with that.
Poppycock. Jonathan O'Halloran says Derek James.
Yes. Change the subject.
Yeah, very. Yeah, because it's not going anywhere. I can't make progress with you guys. You guys refuse to understand and open up your mind, so I can't do anything.
But that's not true either. That's not true either.
Derek James, maybe fight trainer of the year again after going from trainer of the year to losing trainer of the year because of certain,
When you're hot, you're hot.
Yeah, and then you're cold, then you're hot again. I mean, that's huge what he did with this kid, right?
But what did he do? What did he bring to his game that Garcia didn't already have?
Well, I think maybe sometimes as a trainer you just have to let your fighter be that fighter. Let him be.
Yeah, and I think he
did
that. I definitely think he did that.
You know what I mean? You can't change. Like a lot of guys feel like they have to go in and put their stamp of approval on fighters. You know what I mean? Like you got to fight the way I like to see.
That's
fighters.
What Buddy McGirt was like, according to Paul Malignaggi. He said he took away my movement. He said because he told me you got to get low to stay in the show, and made him plant his feet wider than he wanted to, and make him more of a stable base when he wanted to move.
Yeah, exactly. And what a trainer has to do, especially when they end up working with a polished, finished fighter, they need to be able to simply complement his abilities. You can't change them. That's way too much.
Exactly
way too much. You're going like that's a 10-year job, and guys are retired by then.
Exactly. So you work with what somebody's got, But
yeah. So you know what I mean? There's certain things that they lack. There's certain things you can do. You can help them certainly with timing. You know what I mean? And obviously, I think one of the things that most fighters need more than anything is like being able to learning to turn their punches over. so you can throw much more accurate and dexterous punches, because that's the only thing you're really talking with, right? You're talking with your hands, so you need dexterity for that, and that's what a lot of coaches don't do, and that's why, a lot of great fighters or great talents don't realize their talent, because they don't have all the options. They don't have all the weapons are not in the cache. They're left on the table because those things, people just, this is what you're good at, stay with that. But again, I'm getting too much off course here. Derek James, he did a great job with him. Whether he just left him to his own device or not, we'll never know. But they seem to be giving him his props last night at the press conference.
Maybe so, but I don't think there was a great game plan there, really. I think Ryan, I think he only won 4 rounds out of 12, but it was just the way he won them, and he won the fight.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I don't think it was meticulous and exhaustive what they had him doing. I think some of the rounds you're like, what the hell is he doing?
Nobody had bounced him off the canvas like that before. Not even Lomachenko. You know what I mean? Nobody was bouncing off the canvas. Nobody was hurting him. So all those things that happened last night, and the fact that he'd never lost before, and Derek James helped Garcia get that win. So it has to be acknowledged.
Well, yeah, I mean, they didn't lose, so if a trainer's going to take the fall when they lose, then you've got to give them some props when they win, I guess.
Exactly.
But I do wonder quite what it had to do with it. He's worked with him for one fight, because when they work with him for one fight and they're not great, they say, "Well, I need longer." You can't expect me to have a massive impact in one fight. So that could cut the other way as well. I'm just not sure what Derek James did or didn't do, to be honest with you.
He must have been doing something. I mean, we never really got a chance to look at. I saw something. Garcia said that he's drinking, partying, doing whatever he wanted to do before the fight, but his body did not look like somebody who was drinking, partying, and whatever he wanted, eating whatever he wanted to before the fight. So something's going on there, obviously. And they did shake Derek James' hand, and they, you know what I mean? They gave him his props and all the rest of that kind of stuff. So he had to have done something.
Yeah. As usual, I'm going to stick to what I actually know, and because when people say to me, "What do you think of this trainer or that trainer?" if I haven't seen them working, I don't say too much. So that's my take. But is that about a wrap? That's 1 hour 26 minutes and 42 seconds.
That was fast. That was fast. I wish we were able to get to more questions. I apologize. We see that all the time.
We've got to go with the flow to an extent. It's it hasn't been a bad show. I think there's been a meeting of minds. It's much more sedate. It's always going to be more chaos when there's 3 of us. The 3 of us, that's what brings out the spike in us, in all of us, and then suddenly it's off. Because
it brings out the Yosemite Sam in you.
It definitely does in me, but I'm not the only one, am I? Gary gets like that as well at some point.
He gets like somebody else. Let me see who.
Another cartoon character, right?
Yeah, another cartoon character. Oh man, who is that? Not Elmer Fudd. Wait a minute. It'll come. I'll write it in, or I'll save it for next week.
We'll think of it. Okay, listen, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for listening. As always, we'll be back next Friday. Next Sunday, for sure, we've got Alton Murkison, former trainer of the incomparable Roy Jones Jr. But we'll be back on Friday with something. There's some more big fights next weekend, I believe. It's an exciting period we're about to go into. There's a whole bunch of big fights taking place over the next several weeks. So stay with Sugar, Silk, and Stretch for every punch of the way.
And you forgot, what's your record?
Oh, you want to say that? Okay, so right now, the scoreboards of our predictions we've made, Gary is 14-4. 14 correct predictions of 4 losses. The Silk is 11-6, which is the kind of record you were deriding me for just a couple of weeks ago. Unfortunately, it is. It's absolutely fair.
No, it's not. You were 11-6 a couple of weeks.
I absolutely was 11-6. I was. And I was 11-5.
And what are you now?
I was getting stick. Yeah, listen, I'll get into that. I was getting stick when I was 11-5 off you guys. Now you're 11-6. How the mighty.
And sorry. And your record is now what?
11-9. But you know something? Do you know something?
Yeah.
Yours is 11-6. You're only 3 away from that because I've done 3 more than you. Now, okay, the chances of you getting the next 3 wrong on the
don't
spin are
forget,
unlikely.
you guys also made me eat a loss that I didn't want, that I didn't have.
Which one?
So if anything, I should be 11-5.
Which
The
one?
one you and Gary both made me take. I was like, nah, I don't want that. You know, you have to.
No, you didn't. No, you didn't. That was Fraser Clark, and that was a draw. So nobody got that.
No, I don't know about that. And then
it was a draw. So nobody got a point otherwise.
Can you close the show now, please? Oh my God.
I shall. Yes. You can see there's just a friendly kind of, light-hearted competitive edge on this show, which is part of the appeal, we like to think. Regardless of why you find it appealing, come and join us next week. Tell your friends, and let's monetize the fuck out of this baby. In the meantime, we're lucky. Keep punching.